Hi, and welcome to the Purposes of Personal Storytelling class. I am your instructor, Anne Bernard. All right, so the question of why one should become a personal storyteller is really rooted in knowing and understanding the benefits and the purposes. So, we're going to take a closer look at the purposes in this class. I highly recommend you also take the benefits class. So, as part of the overview of the world of personal storytelling, I did a class on the overview of the purposes and benefits, but it's really worth truly understanding what they are because that's where you're going to be able to answer the question for yourself. Do you want to become a personal storyteller? Are you looking for those purposes and those benefits in your life? And if yes, then it's going to be very easy for you to answer the question, yes, I want to become a personal storyteller. All right, so the agenda for this class, we're going to take a look at the dual purposes. On one side, you have all the purposes as a communication means, and the other side is for personal development. Now, the personal development purposes come from the framework that I've created. So it is a process that I teach and train people in that brings along the personal development side. Otherwise, personal storytelling is primarily known as a communication tool with, some benefits. But I want to clarify that there's dual purposes and each side, all the purposes generate the benefits. So, all right, so let's first look at it as a communication tool. So, first and foremost, it is a means for you to inform, teach, and educate and communicate with people who you are. And it is our responsibility to do that. And this is something that I was really late in life when I had to admit that to myself, that the fact that people didn't know who I was wasn't their fault. It was my fault. Sure, there are people that could have asked me more questions. There are people who could have been better listeners because as soon as I pick up that people aren't listening, I shut down. So, yeah, my interactions with them could have better encouraged me opening up, but the reality was that I didn't see a reason to open up, right? So I talk about this when I introduce myself as part of the overview course. I was in my mid-30s when I realized I didn't know how to connect with people, and I had never desired to connect with people, so I didn't know how. So becoming a personal storyteller, that's how I learned to open up and be vulnerable and inform people about who I am. So you have to take that mental. You have to admit that it's my responsibility. Again, depending on whether or not you took the other one, some of the other classes, you might not heard me say that when I walk away from someone, I don't want them to have an opinion of who I am. I want them to have an understanding of who I am. I want to give it my best shot at being understood, at being seen, heard, and understood. I'm taking it on me. That's my responsibility to do that. And that's why accepting and becoming a personal storyteller meant that I understand I have that responsibility. So if you want that responsibility, if you understand you have that responsibility and you find it very difficult, well, guess what? Personal storytelling will absolutely help you with that. And it helps us ensure that we don't just inform and communicate who we currently are, but we take people on the journey of who we were and how we've become who we are now. So I'm willing to bet that you have many interesting, fascinating, entertaining stories about your life that you have placed on an imaginary shelf. and decided that they were no longer worth sharing. While becoming a personal storyteller, we're going to mine your past. We're going to go look for those life experiences, turn them into stories, and help people really come to understand who you are. And in the process, you're going to engage and entertain people with your stories, right? So that's the other benefit on the purposes on the communication side is to be more engaging and entertaining. We all want to be more engaging and entertaining because it helps us to fit in, to belong, to make more friends, to have a more active social life because people want to be around us. So you get to leverage your experiences so that you can engage, entertain people. And it doesn't have to be because you've had these crazy adventures and life experiences. Now, you as a personal storyteller, because you start making heart-to-heart connection, people find you more engaging and entertaining because of the way that you are communicating through your personal stories. So, you know what? I'm not going to lie about it. I'm going to be honest. I want attention, right? It's human nature. We want to belong. We want attention. We desire to be liked. We desire positive attention. We want to be sought out. We've all been around boring people, people that you can't get them to talk to you, to open up, to share, to say anything. They're just like wet blankets. You just don't get any information from them. They're monotone, stoic. It's hard. You can still love, if you have family members, friends, you're still gonna love them. It's just challenging to be around them, and you're certainly not seeking them out, right? That engaging, entertaining person, oh, you wanna be around that person. And by the way, this has nothing to do with being an introvert or an extrovert. I'm very much an introvert. I like deep conversation, which is also why I like being a personal storyteller because I leverage personal storytelling to go deeper in sharing who I am and encouraging others to share who they are because I'm making myself vulnerable. So to me, an engaging story or engaging conversation doesn't have to be one where I'm constantly laughing. No, it's one that has meaning. It's one that has depth to it. That's engaging to me as an introvert. Personal storytelling allows me to open up in that way and create the space because after I've shared a story or two, I'm creating the space for another person or persons to do that. Okay, so influence positively, positively, positively. I gotta put that in there. Influence and persuade people because if you've taken the intro to personal storytelling class, you know that storytelling can be used in questionable and evil way. So you can go from influencing and persuading to manipulating and controlling. So we want to stay in the very positive light, influence and persuade people. But the bottom line is people don't want to be told what to do or what not to do. So sharing your stories from your life, the mistakes that you've made, the lessons that you've learned, well, that's an opportunity for you to influence someone to not do what you've done, or you share with them a really exciting story of you stepping out of your comfort zone and having an adventure. Well, you might influence to persuade them to do that. So it's a really great communication tool to have in your arsenal in order to influence and persuade. Could be coworkers, friends, brothers, sisters, kids, right? Have a really great story to share with them about when you were a kid so that they don't do what you've done or you encourage them to do something that you've done through your stories. So Storytelling is a very powerful way of doing that. So, story is a pull strategy. If your story is good enough, people of their own free will, no convincing, no, you know, needing to, well, convince. I'm trying to think of a more severe word, but it's we'll go with convincing of their own free will, come to the conclusion they can trust you and your message. And that's the other thing where you're establishing through sharing a personal story the ability for the person to make their own decision, but for them to get to know you and for them to be able to trust you. And that's how, so the story itself might not immediately influence them, but through sharing the story, through sharing your stories, they get more comfortable with you. They have a great understanding who you are. They trust you more. And that over time also provides you the opportunity to have positive influence over someone. And this is a quote from Annette Simmons from her book. And her book is specifically on how story can be used to influence and persuade. And she doesn't just talk about personal stories, but just stories in general. All right. So on the other side of the coin, we have personal storytelling for personal growth. It is, I would put the process of becoming a personal storyteller through the framework that I've created, I would put that against any and all personality tests. If you go through the framework and become a personal storyteller, you will have greater self-awareness, you will have the meaning of your life, and you'll have access to your subconscious. Really, nothing else provides you that. This is why this is so transformative and powerful. So, self-awareness provides an individual with awareness of their internal states, so your emotions, your cognitive, physio physiological and responses, everything that drives your behavior. So, your belief, values, and motivation, and awareness of how this impacts and influences others. So, the who over what class is a really great class to understand why who you are matters so much. And understanding who you are comes from having this really great self-awareness. So the process of becoming, and that's one of the benefits, raising your self-awareness. It's one of the benefits, and it's one of the purposes. Making meaning of your life. So connecting all the dots together and making meaning where it's so important that we understand who we are and ourselves so that we can make better decision, so that we can be conscious of our reaction, make meaning of our reaction, regulate our emotions. Again, I'm stepping a little bit into the benefits, but there's an overlap, right? Because it's when you discover and understand who you are and you live and walk out who you are that you really start tapping a lot of the benefits. But the process, you will make meaning, because that's what you want to communicate, is the meaning of your experiences. So it's one of the key aspect of going through the process of outlining your stories. Accessing your subconscious. Our brains, whether or not we know it, learn so much and drive our reactions, our behaviors, and it's all based on things that we're not aware of. So our biases, our assumptions, they're part of our subconscious. Well, the process of becoming a personal storyteller, we start bringing all of that to the surface. So it's a powerful way of accessing our subconscious, and it's necessary to access our subconscious to really get to the point where you have much greater control and influence over your own life. So discovering and understanding who we are is also part of realizing everything that has influence over us, and whatever we don't, the who and the what that we don't want influencing us, we can start doing something about it. All right, so there's tremendous value in uncovering the meaning of the events of our lives. It serves to help us make sense of what's happened to us, what we've lived through. It clarifies who we are, as well as why we are who we are. And to be a person who knows who you know how you became who you are who you are, and who you want to become is a beautiful place to be, because from that powerful position, you continue to move forward in the world, and that starts impacting everything around you. All right, so author who you're becoming. So this is part of, okay, you know who you are who you are, how you became who you are, and you realize that you have control and power over who you're becoming, which means you can start authoring different types of stories. So you can choose to start doing things differently. So you want to add stories to your life, but you also want to change your life. You got to do things differently. To do things differently, you have to understand why you were doing things a certain way, and who, the I don't want to rehash the focus on the who class, but everything is ultimately tied to the who, right? So this is making shifts into your mindsets, into your behaviors, into your thought patterns, general patterns that you have, your interaction, your reactions, everything. And they can be subtle, small shifts that over time really add up, or you can even start making some really big shifts to maybe you're trying to really push yourself outside your comfort zones, overcome certain fears, whatever it might be. But you get to author who you're becoming. Choosing what kind of author to be. So the process, you're going to start hearing the way that you talk to yourself. You're going to start realizing the themes in your life and the narrative, a narrative identity that you've associated to yourself through developing your story repertoire, through going through the events and the experience in your life and creating stories. So as all of this comes up, you'll realize, okay, what what kind of author am I? Right? Therefore, what kind of stories am I creating? So anxiety, being full of fear, disgruntled, immature, jealous, envious, selfish, mean, impatient, rude, berating, negative. I mean, that's how you talk to yourself. If that's the kind of author you are to yourself, you're probably not writing empowering stories. So, in the author development process, all right, we're going to change, right? You're going to want to develop into being the type of author that's patient and loving and kind and wise and generous and thoughtful and selfless and brave and bold, confident, hopeful. That type of author is going to write much different stories. So, authoring who you're becoming is really key to what does the rest of your life look like. And the process of becoming a personal storyteller will raise these things to the surface, and then you start realizing you're the main character of your life and you're the author. What kind of main character do you want to be? What kind of author do you want to be? So that's really towards the um you're really at that point truly stepping in the personal development space, but you're continuing to do so within the concept of understanding personal storytelling, being a personal storyteller, and again, being an author. So I hope that it's hmm, it gets more complex, but we don't that's not what we do out of the gate. And there's actually another framework around developing yourself as an author. But to be a good author, we must know and understand the main character and how to best assist, support, encourage, counsel, and lead the main character. Main character being who you are. You're the main character of your story. You need to understand that character. What does that character need? What new stories do you need to write, right? Where do you want to grow? How do you want to change? How do you want to keep evolving? How do then how can I, as the author, this higher level of yourself, support, encourage, and be there and counsel and guide the um the main character? Now, for me, I'm the main character, I'm the author, and as a person of faith, my ultimate author is God. So God, he, he's the big author. But I still have responsibility to keep growing who I am. So, I yeah. Anyways, okay. So much more to cover, as you guys can probably tell. One of the next step is to get started with the core course, because all of the purposes, again, if you want to tap into those purposes and the benefits, then you have to work through the core course. You have to learn how to become a personal storyteller, how to take your experiences, turn them into a story, and then tap into the purposes and tap into the benefits. So I hope I will see you in the benefit class. Do all the free classes. I really hope you'll take advantage of all the free classes. If you I'll let you know if you enjoy the way that I teach, the content that I provide, and then if you're getting value. And like I said at the beginning, you'll decide if you want to be a personal storyteller based on seeing if it's worth it, if it'll have an impact on your life, and possibly I know it'll have an impact on your life, and that it will change the way that you communicate, you interact, and how you build relationships. But you have to decide that it's something that you want. But anyways, I still hope that you'll get started with a core course, and I'll see you in some of the live events. All right. Bye.